I believe FINRA creates fraudulent counterfeit shares. Let me repeat. FINRA creates fraudulent counterfeit shares. Why is that? Because on December 8th, 2022, according to FINRA data itself, 13.7 million shares of stock symbol MMTLP were traded, of which 9.5 million shares were short shares. Okay, what's a short share? A short sale is when shares are sold without being purchased. Let me repeat that. Shares are sold without being purchased. That's a short sale. Short sales have the effect of diluting the shares until the shares are subsequently purchased. The idea is that you sell something that you don't own and you hope to buy it back later on at a cheaper price, right? That's what a short sale is. So that's what happened. There were 9.5 million shares that were sold, which didn't exist. And the idea was that those people, the short sellers, could buy back those shares later at some later point in time, and that would reconcile the shares. But FINRA did something different. FINRA issued a U3 halt, and they prevented the short shares from ever being closed in an open market. FINRA issued a U3 halt, and that prevented the short shares from ever being closed in an open market. What does that mean? The result of FINRA's actions resulted in the sale of counterfeit shares, because every one of those short shares became fraudulent counterfeit shares because they were sold, but they were never purchased, and you can never purchase them. There's no way to reconcile that. It's done. Those shares are now fraudulent counterfeit shares. They're fraudulent counterfeit shares because of FINRA's actions. FINRA created the fraudulent counterfeit shares. Okay? Not only that, when you sell fraudulent counterfeit shares into the market, you suppress the price, right? Because you've sold a ton of shares that don't exist, that aren't real, right? That's called price manipulation. So FINRA is responsible for price manipulation due to the sale of fraudulent counterfeit shares, which they created, okay? So FINRA is responsible for price manipulation. Furthermore, FINRA, okay, prevented every single MMTLP shareholder from receiving a one-to-one dividend of a private company called Nextbridge Hydrocarbons. The reason for that is there were 165 million shares which were issued of MMTLP, and those shares could be, those shares would result in a one-to-one dividend of a private company called Nextbridge Hydrocarbons. There was only 165 million shares of Nextbridge Hydrocarbons issued to the issuer. Okay, though that was taken care of by Nextbridge Hydrocarbons. However, because more shares existed, right? More fraudulent counterfeit shares existed in the world, thanks to FINRA, right? Brokers could not provide a one-to-one dividend of the private company, Nextbridge Hydrocarbons, to their shareholders, right? Because they couldn't tell if a shareholder had a fraudulent counterfeit share, right? And they're not going to admit to the shares being fraudulent counterfeit, because otherwise now the brokers are now on the hook for selling fraudulent counterfeit shares, and they could lose their brokerage license, right? FINRA is responsible for all of this.